Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone.
And I'm your co-host, Ahmed Ahmed.
Well, welcome, everyone. Today's a special episode. We're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. You know, it's about learning how to not just manage our emotions, but really to use our emotions to help us live a better life and make great decisions. So welcome, everybody. My guest, Dr. Kevin, welcome back again. Ahmed, thank you for joining me on this episode. We're going to start with just introducing ourselves and tell us a little bit of what you do and how you implement emotional intelligence in your practice. Dr. Kevin, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, personally, I am a chiropractor and kinesiologist. And that's the world of how the structure and the brain and central nervous system and all the interconnections work together. And I tell people that I balance, I'm a natural neurology expert, and I help balance the body, mind, body, spirit, and using no drugs, no surgery, all natural protocols and technologies. And from there, emotional intelligence, that's the major branch of how the body works. And so that's something I employ called neuroemotional technique. And this is has to do with the wiring of different components of life that stress our body out. And so from emotions to traumas to accidents, to things that we can't get beyond. There's oftentimes patterns wired in that produces the mind loops, and that's done through a physical neurologic reflex system. And it's getting all kinds of fun research done now, and it's launched a whole new branch in the medical community for a non-pharmaceutical approach to dealing with a lot of mind and mind-body problems. And the list of symptoms that it addresses goes on and on. So I'll pass the mic, but ultimately I find that the emotional self and the balance, or things that are out of balance, is the number one factor in all symptoms and patterns. And as that gets handled, other things unfold in greater ways.
Thank you. And I know, what we study in the energy world is that everything really starts on an emotional basis, and then the physical body will manifest into whatever we're feeling, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah. That's what I've learned about that community, and that's what I've seen to come true from different points of view that support exactly that statement.
Thank you. And Angelique?
Hi there, everyone. Sorry, I've been having problems with my Wi-Fi, so I didn't quite get the beginning part. So are we just introducing ourselves, Giovanna?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm not quite sure if you guys can hear me, but hi, my name is Angelique Bala-Kersley, and as you can hear, I'm not American-born. I'm from South Africa, and I am the proud owner of Abundant Moon, which has been in practice for just over 3 years now. And in terms of what I do, I'm an intuitive guide as well as Reiki energy facilitator. So very, very unique, abilities that we need, like emotional intelligence, to be able to go forth and serve our clients in ways that can better enhance, their experience in life. So yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Angelique. And Anna?
Hi, thank you for inviting me, Gigi.
Of course.
I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a licensed clinician and the proud owner of Anna Haven Behavioral Health Services for over 10 years. I also worked at Yale for 10 years, and prior to that, so I've done a lot of stuff around emotions. And this topic of emotion is so very close to my heart, because we do work with people in domestic violence situations where emotion is everything. And we find individuals who come in, they don't realize within a domestic violence situation because it's emotional and it's not physical. So we almost have to train them that, yes, he or she may not be touching you, but your emotion is so very important. And that the emotional abuse, most of the time, is more detrimental, even than the physical abuse. That's what I do. And that's what else.
Well, thank you.
And our goal, and what we've actually branched out, the private practice has been around for over a decade. And in the past, during COVID, we found that there were a lot of people who were in domestic violence situation who did not realize it until COVID. There are couples who never knew each other. One worked first shift, one worked second shift. They never saw each other. And then during COVID, they were forced to be in the home together and with the children there. And because of that, domestic violence escalated. And when we saw the escalation, we decided to branch out and open up an aspect of nonprofit domestic violence aspect so that everyone will be able to serve.
Thank you. And Laura?
Hello, I'm Laura Waldman, also known as the Wealth Accelerator. I work with driven, big-hearted business owners and entrepreneurs to transform blocks to owning their value to manifest high cash months. So I work with how to welcome more wealth into your business, your bank account, in alignment with your heart, body, and soul. And I've been a healer, spiritual coach, and channel for over 2 decades, and I now specialize in helping business owners transform, heal their relationship with money, their relationship with their business, by working on their relationship with themselves. So what's really interesting, I learned, many years ago, is when we have a block in our finances or a money problem or a business problem, I found that really we want to go and find where does that live within. And it's usually invisible in a blind spot. And what I found was there are blocks to manifesting, blocks to creating wealth, or blocks that contribute to, let's say, money problems, actually is a feeling problem, kind of a frozen feeling, if you will, an unprocessed emotion that can come from past trauma or, all sorts of interesting things, generally from the past, and help my clients to stay present with unlock those blocks by essentially learning how to feel your feelings and move them through the body in a safe way, because it can, feel really overwhelming, but it's how we manage our emotions, how we hold ourselves emotionally, that is really important with business and leadership and, financial growth as well.
Thank you. And here we go. Our next guest, Mr. JJ, is going to introduce himself. Let's see. So I do know, being an energy practitioner myself, that emotion is energy in motion. And, to realize that and understand that, the energy that we feel, we can shift it. We can have the ability to shift it. Can truly help us make better decisions, because when we have those energy blocks, we're making decisions based on those energies, and sometimes they don't serve us. Let's see. And now we have Reverend JJ. Welcome. Can you hear me? Beautiful. So you're just in time to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Beautiful. Can you hear me?
Yes. A little louder.
Awesome. My name is Joe Ismar. A lot of people call me JJ to make things a bit easier. I am a mystic, metaphysician, and a mentor to business owners. I like to dabble and bring business and spirituality together. I think it's the most important. And just excited to be here. It's not my first time with you, Giovanna. Grateful for you, grateful for everybody here, and excited about this conversation for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so Ahmed, let's get started. We have some questions lined up for our guests so that we can really learn about how to really harness our emotional intelligence and understand how can we use this knowledge that we're going to share today to really serve us in the best way.
Absolutely. Just want to discuss a little bit about emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence basically it's the ability to understand, use, manage our own emotions and the emotions of others effectively. Involves of us being aware of our feelings, controlling impulses, expressing emotions appropriately, and handling interpersonal relationships empathetically and judicially. It's as well crucial for overall health because it helps us navigate the complexities of daily life with more resilience and balance. So, by managing our emotions, we can basically direct ourselves in the proper direction that we need to go. Now, in terms of the questions, first question that I'd like to ask is how has self awareness, because there is a connection between emotional intelligence and self awareness as well. So, how has self awareness played a role in your healing journey, especially during challenging personal or professional situations? Can you share a specific experience where this awareness led to greater self compassion or growth?
And we'll start with Dr. Kevin.
Yeah. Well, in the light of self healing and self growth, the awareness of the sensation associated with the feeling became the most important focus for me. I liked how Laura talked about that frozen feeling in relationship to a topic. So for me, where I have been the last 15 years, personally and professionally, is this following this specific training that taught about how every emotional state has a sensation associated with that we could use descriptive terms to identify it. So that became a strategy for me to know when I was having difficulty in a topic of life, to really start to go in and define what the feelings were within me, the sensations associated with the emotions and the behavior. And it's an ongoing practice, and it's something that I do daily. And to me, it's one of the most important things I coach my clients on when it comes to even physical body work, to the mind body work that we do, to develop greater awareness of how their environment impacts them physically and emotionally. And that starts to clue us in to these places to focus on, to create, to express the wisdom, find that truth in there.
Thank you. And
Thank
Anna?
you.
Yes, emotions is so very important. It's like our GPS in our car. It's like a guidance system. It's the way that our creator guide us into what's the best way to go. So if we ignore the emotions, you'll see that it'll start with the emotion, eventually become a physical element, because the emotion has to go somewhere. So the emotion, to me, is the key. Like Deepak Chopra says, we are our emotions. And I find that is so true for me. Because if I feel an emotion and I ignore it, eventually it's going to show up somewhere. Like I said earlier, with domestic violence, for example, when women or men who are in a domestic violence situation, when they're not aware that the emotion is abuse, then it does show up somewhere. They end up in the emergency room with an ailment, with something more physical, but it really started with the emotion.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Angelique, you're back again. Let's see. Can you hear us? All right, we'll go with Laura, and then we'll come back to Angelique.
Well, I've been working with my emotional intelligence for a very long time. I used to have very big and difficult feelings, like all the way through my childhood, but I didn't know how to manage them. And as I started to meditate and started my healing journey, it was really about, rather than, shutting that down and suppressing them, because what I learned to do was shut them down because they weren't received and I was never mentored in them. And I started to develop ill health, physical ill health, mental and emotional imbalance. And really just started to understand, very, similar to what's been said, is that my emotions had intelligence. There was information in there, but they needed to be held. They needed to be paid attention to. I needed to listen to them and hold a safe space for what I was feeling in order to process, because I didn't understand what I was feeling, but I was feeling a lot of things. Turns out I'm very, very psychic, very sensitive to my environment around me. So my emotions were giving me information about my environment, my surroundings, and myself within that. And so, yeah, there's been, many situations, but I like to navigate particularly any kind of relationship challenges, whether that's in my marriage or my kids or my clients, that if there's emotions coming up, to really make sure that I process and manage my emotions every day. So it's almost like doing a daily dump, kind of need to do a daily like emotional processing, emotional releasing.
Yeah.
And I've just learned that I need to pay attention to those feelings every day and like move them through, clear them through, listen to them, not get attached to them. So I can move forward with being a better leader, business owner, wife, parent, friend.
Thank you. Thank you. And JJ?
I was going to say, is this a trick question? Is self-awareness kind of plays a role in all healing journeys, right? But I definitely would say that for me, self-awareness is key, even for business. I love to give like real-world examples of how I did this. So one of the thousands of examples, I used to work in the restaurant industry, about 8 years working as a server, the bartender, a restaurant owner, owner manager, owner assistant. And there was just one time I was working with a manager and he said something to me and it triggered a feeling and a sensation in my body, right? And typically, if it was anybody else or a majority of my other friends, that were also serving tables, they probably would have blown up. They probably would have reacted to him. They would have started a fight, in front of kind of the entire staff and those customers that were around us. So in the moment, okay, I'm aware that I'm feeling this way, right? Where's this feeling coming from? This feeling had nothing to do with him, so our feelings, we have these sensations, and our emotions are our brain's way of trying to figure out what's happening, or where, kind of block us from having an experience, and it uses past experiences to make predictions on what's going to happen in the moment. So, just in that moment, I decided to breathe, decided to relax. I do this thing where instead of actually physically doing EFT tapping, I'll like mentally rehearse myself doing EFT tapping in the moment if I don't have my hands free, and it helped me, and it helped get that emotion. It was feeling resentful, feeling rejected, right? Feel all those feelings in that moment, again, had nothing to do with the person or even that experience, but breathing it through and finding your own coping mechanisms in the moment. That's what helped me in that specific experience. And it's why I share these tools with other people, because we can choose to shift our state of something or our experience something in the moment, for the moment.
So it's responding versus reacting when you kind of really look at how the emotion play a part in our lives. And we'll bring Angelique back on.
Hi
Angelique,
there.
welcome
I'm
back.
so sorry. We have a
No
storm brewing
worries,
here
it's
in Florida.
technology.
So
It's
absolutely.
okay.
I'm sorry. Could you just reiterate the question for me?
Yes.
Sure. So how
Thank
has
you.
self-awareness played a role in your healing journey, especially during challenging professional or personal situations? And can you
Okay.
share a specific experience where this awareness led to a greater self-compassion or growth?
Okay. So that's a beautiful, beautiful question. And I just want to say, like, self-awareness for me has been part of my healing journey. And we all know the healing journey never ends. It never ever ends. And it's played such a vital part in my work, especially, as well as my personal relationships. As when we actually break it down, it's knowing yourself and truly understanding what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. It's understanding what your triggers are. And coming from a background of a lot of, a traumatic background as a child, a lot of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, you tend to disassociate. And that's what I've done throughout my life. So I dissociated. I had my mind and I had my body. So the two were walking different realities consistently. And it really brought about a lot of issues later on in life. So, I could not, later on as an adult, I couldn't sit and talk to people because I'd rather not be heard and seen. And I realized that was causing such a great problem in my life that I had to go and work and I had to make money, but I couldn't do that because I could not talk to people. So I could hear my pounding in my head. I could feel my face blowing up. It was going red. And then I would pass out, from this incredible anxiety. So understanding and learning how to control your emotions, how to manage them, what your triggers are, has been an exceptional curve. And that's why the countless personal development I've done over the years, the master classes, the books of the greats, every single time I attended one of those or read one of those, beautiful little nuggets and would come out and spark that emotional and self-awareness of, oh my God, this is part of my trauma. This is why I'm behaving that way. Okay, how do I better navigate that? So the first layer comes off. Then you carry on to the next experience, the next healing journey. So as the years go by, it just better helped me understand and manage. And it's sort of like a superpower. That's part of emotional intelligence. It's a beautiful superpower where you can read the room. These leaders that walk in, you can feel their energy. They just have it together. You don't know how, you don't know why, but it's an energetic resonance of being in complete alignment with self. And, this is what I found with especially the work I do. It's having that self-awareness. You need to be a clear channel for the work. Being a Reiki energetic practitioner, being an intuitive spiritual guide, you need to make sure that you don't have any ego lingering around, no judgment, no anger, no fear. You need to bring your best self forward, so in light they can bring their self forward.
I love it.
This is what I found has been a beautiful integral part of my learning journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And with all the comments that were made, I could just see a common thread here is that we are more in charge when we have self-awareness of our emotions.
Amen.
Which is beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Beautiful answers.
Thank you.
Next questions. Next question. In what ways has emotional intelligence contributed to your ability to heal and nurture meaningful relationships? What communication strategies do you use to foster deeper, more empathetic connections with others?
Okay. Well, that's ongoing. That's an ongoing project, so to speak. And for me, one of the most important revelations I've had is that all my relations are a reflection of something within me. And of course, there's different arenas of what relationships are. So from friendships to family, business, clients, and there's more than that, of course. And so I noticed in my professional world that when I overcame something in my personal life, that clients would show up and express something along those same lines. And the wisdom that I gained from those personal experiences, I was able to apply in the professional experience. And, I've thought about that dance quite a lot over the years in the sense of, is it now I'm seeing something new and I'm painting the story on to my clients, or is it something I've opened up an access now as a new client that shows up and they're having a reflection of that, or at least a piece of their challenge is a iteration of that, and we get to work on it. And so that's the whole self-awareness. It's like the conversation of reflections, and this gets into the metaphysics of what is natural law and what is the nature of reality. And that gets a bit interesting, though. This idea of reflections and projections and how we dance by what we see, and what we see has to do with how we color our own experiences.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so
Beautiful.
true.
I would
And
piggyback on what Dr. Kevin says,
yeah,
where people are mirrors of us. Because I find clients come into the office and they'll be either experiencing something I've experienced in the past, or I'm currently experiencing, or I'll be experiencing. And the other thing that's the mirror is so amazing, where even certain staff people will have a mirror of the type of client that comes in. That amazes me because I'm not micromanaging trying to fix clients with staff. It'll just happen that whatever is going on with them, it'll be the perfect client for them to match that, that emotion, that behavior. It's just amazing. And the way I use emotional intelligence myself personally is what I call talk less, feel more, defend never, and praise only. So I try my best. I actually write that on my calendar, the initials, so that I can remember to talk less, feel more, defend never, and praise only in my interpersonal relationships. I have twin boys, and I had to learn that quickly with them. So when you have two boys, first try, it really forces you to get emotionally fit quickly. And I just find that emotion, I mean, I'm so happy about this topic because it really is everything. And when we feel the emotion, I can actually feel the emotion moving through my body. Like my partner was saying, where Reverend was saying that someone at work said something and you felt it in your body. I will literally feel the emotion of my body where something, whether it's joy or sadness. So it's very important to be mindful and be self-aware when you feel the emotion moving through your body, so that it doesn't come out in another way.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
And Angelique?
Okay, my goodness, I love this topic, man. There's so much that we can talk about. So in terms of how I've used it to contribute to my healing and meaningful relationships, it has had a dramatic effect on my interpersonal relationships, obviously with my husband and my children, especially because we are all totally different people, different belief systems, different way of ticking, and someone has to hold the family together. It's like someone has to have the glue to understand what everybody is thinking, and because if we don't, it's just chaos, right? And that's exactly what's happening in the world today as well. So harnessing the ability to be able to be emotionally intelligent and understand, for instance, my husband coming home from a hard day of work, the last thing he needs from me is, hey honey, how you doing? Do you want to tell me about your day? Oh my God, I'd love to tell you what I did today. He doesn't care. He just wants to sit down, have a beer, and just relax. But because I'm emotionally aware, I am well ahead of him. I can see by his body movement when he walks into the room, I can read his energy, and I can understand that he's had a very hard day. So you know what? Like, honey, take a seat. I got you covered. And when he's ready, so I'm helping him to regulate his emotions. So when he's done, he can come to me and say, you know what, babe, thank you so much. I had such a rough day. And that's where we can actually sit and have a conversation. So it's being emotionally aware to understand, what that other person is going through. So you allow yourself to be the best self forward, and then they come through and echo that. So it's such an incredible way of learning to manage everybody else as well as your emotions, which has a knock-on effect, especially with your kids. Every kid is different. So my oldest is ADHD and my youngest is a firecracker. So the two of them butt heads all the time. So, you have to be aware on how to manage both of them, but coming forward with such an incredible amount of empathy and compassion, which I've learned through the healing process. You understand that everybody has a time and place for certain conversations and emotions. So it's helping them regulate and understand, honey, Josh doesn't like to be pushed right now. So how about you just turn around and let's focus on something else? Oh yeah, mommy. Okay. Everybody does their part. So it's like just almost like being the person to allow everybody else to understand, hey, I've got a time and place. I've got a role to play. So, you know, it's been incredible in my family unit as well as in my business. You can read the person when they walk in the room. You know exactly what they need within that session. So
I love it.
beautiful.
And it's so true. You use two beautiful words, which is compassionate and empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we can really connect to other people and just, you know, instead of responding to whatever's going on, you take a moment to just, you know, acknowledge
Yeah.
where they're at. So thank you. That was beautifully said.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Lara?
Yes, such a deep, juicy conversation. So I grew up with quite a lot of trauma. So when I started working as a healer, I'm very good at helping other people regulate their emotions, balance their energetic system, help them get their energy flowing. So I was very good at holding space for everyone else to do that. But when it came to myself, because of my trauma, I really isolated myself, and I was able to show up with all this love, serving others and giving to others. But I became really nonverbal and shut down myself personally because I didn't feel safe. It took me quite a long time to really understand that. And this is where marriage and parenting gets to mirror itself back to you, right? I think, well, all relationships mirror themselves back to you, but especially when you're in a marriage or with your children and you're with them all the time, it's like really, and I thought that's the best. You could think you're is really enlightened and then have children and they'll mirror yourself back to you. And so it was amazing. And I knew that because of my spiritual practice. I knew about the mirroring and I knew about reflection. And I knew how to do that work on my own, but I hadn't been trained in the skills to actually communicate clearly. And that really started happening with my husband. So I would be like the space holder and like the giver and the nurturer, and similar, come home and let me support you. But I was excluding myself in that. So I was like, I'm an amazing space holder for everyone else. And I had to really learn that actually what was happening is I was silencing some of my needs and my wants. And how do I communicate that? And I found that sometimes, because I didn't really know, it would sometimes maybe come out in bursts of anger or bursts of sadness. And so really learning, actually with the help of lots of tools, but with my husband and I, we learned a tool called nonviolent communication. And we learned a tool it's called daily temperature readings, where it was a really structured way of communicating and clearing together, because we were finding our communication was doing this, it was coming at loggerheads, and it was really affecting our ability to connect and to like meet each other's needs. So I was like always giving to everyone else, overgiver, and then slowly but surely building up resentment, and then would kind of withdraw and shut down, and we couldn't meet. So it really, really showed up in my marriage. So we've been doing lots of work on that over many, many years. Fail all the time, of course, because we are perfectly imperfect, but it's about basically finding tools to understand your emotions, manage your own emotions, but then how do you communicate your wants and needs calmly and clearly to another person without getting like triggered and challenged? And, you know, how do we hear each other and hold space for each other's different wants and needs and different emotions? And, you know, it's a real art. It's a real skill. And there is lots of failure along the way, but being able to do rupture and repair work, being able to apologize, being able to acknowledge, being able to own your own crap, right, that comes up. So for me, there's a lot of work around owning triggers and challenges, doing that inner work, but then figuring out how to communicate. And I would say, like in my marriage, we needed to get couples therapy. We needed to have a space holder and a facilitator to help us with communication when it was really difficult, because we both have different types of trauma from our past. So that's where, like, I've learned a lot with clients, you know, coaching thousands of people over many years, with my kids. But I would say, like, really closest to home is where it really, you know, where your shadow aspects can really come out. Reveal to heal, I like to say.
Oh, I love that. And it's your own experience that we take and then we can teach others from, right? So that's basically where we have the gifts of being so unique, because it's our own experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And JJ?
I always think about this equation: pain plus progress, pain plus reflection equals progress. And I like to share this because we all experience a good roller coaster of emotions in our life, right? And what I found in my personal experiences, yeah, working on beliefs, subconscious limiting beliefs, that was great. But it wasn't until I included working with emotions that everything started to shift for me. And more specifically, going back into my past, didn't have the best past, regular kid growing up in New Jersey, child of immigrants from Dominican Republic. There was a lot of baggage that came with, being a first generation, having your parents sacrifice everything that they had to be here. And part of that was, as I grew up, learning how to cope with those emotions. And after just kind of going back and healing all those past feelings and sensations from the past, you reflect and you progress, where now you can have a lot more empathy for other people that are experiencing those emotions, because you know what they feel like, so you can identify, you can be empathetic with the person, because okay, I remember when I was feeling this way, what was I experiencing? Okay, well, I was experiencing that, maybe this person experiencing something like that. So you tend to become more compassionate, more empathetic in your communication. One thing I like to use as a communication tool is pre-framing. It's something that we definitely use a lot in the business world, but when you're communicating with somebody else, what you're feeling, as opposed to kind of blaming them, for example, I always like to say, typically if I'm talking to somebody that I love and they're saying something or they're acting out in a specific way, I say, well, look, you are this way, you are beautiful, you are amazing, you're typically like this, but right now I'm experiencing you like this, right? So I'm not necessarily talking about them, but how I'm experiencing them in the moment, and then allows them to reflect on how they may be being in the moment, and if it's coming from somewhere else that has nothing to do with the current state of what's happening. So pre-framing, letting people know before you say something that could trigger them, right? Just kind of let it be known that how you actually feel, and it's not a target against them, but more specifically with how they're being and your experience of how they're being. Has saved a lot of time.
Beautiful. Well, you just gave us a
Beautiful.
tip right there, huh? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Next question. Can you describe a time when your emotional intelligence transformed a difficult situation into a profound healing or learning opportunity? What insights did you gain from this experience?
There's a technique where you put one hand on your forehead and the other hand goes on the area where your pulse is, your fingertips, where your pulse is, and it's called the FAST technique, first aid stress tool. And I had a client whose son committed suicide. She called me right after calling the ambulance, and she was having extremely difficult moments. And the emotional intelligence, I guess the conversation for me here in this example is knowing that there's intensities related to these topics, and it's a wave that was coming through her. And this tool that I had been gifted into myself through these profound trauma specialists, let's go on. It allowed her brain to not get rigid in a belief, in an experience, in an expression, and allowed it to flow through her. In the 45 minutes on the phone while she's waiting for the ambulance to arrive, she went through these periods of fluctuation, of extreme ups and downs, and then back to neutrality. And in the moments of being in neutral, she was explaining that she could feel the wave come on, and as she put her hands on the spots and her other hand on her forehead, it allowed it to discharge. So emotions, when we're related to these strong experiences, have a power associated with, like an energetic a charge to it, like putting your finger in a socket. And that when we don't have an outlet, as someone expressed earlier, it blows out parts of our body. And this can be in an organ, this could be a physical pain, this could be a psychological break. And yet what this tool did in the most extreme moments, and I've used it in other softer moments, of course, in other parts of life, though this is the most extreme moment I've ever experienced, but having her hook up these points in her body, it's just touching her wrist where the pulse is with all the fingertips of the other hand. The other hand goes right on the forehead. It allowed that discharge effect, even though it didn't change the fact, it didn't change the kind of emotion she was experiencing. It allowed the wave of the intensity to not blow out part of her beingness, her mind, her body in some way. And so this is revelations of discoveries that took generations of professionals to learn how what's actually going on here. But the point is, we can discharge it. And there's other ways, and people here, there's professionals here that have other components. Though I know at a physical, neurologic expression of how this stuff, it blows out parts of our life. This is something we can do to let it be grounded, so to speak.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Kevin.
So I just want to say, I don't know what anyone else is going to say, but I know whatever they're going to say, apply their methodology and their conceptions and applications, and apply this physical modality, like sticking your feet barefoot on the ground in the sand and the water, and putting your hands in these places on our forehead and our heart. Is another great spot.
I will share something personal. Last night I was actually looking on the phone at a earthing mattress pad, because I understand even that can help with our bodies, and to feel better. Just earthing alone is a great way to calm the body and connect with nature. For me, it's definitely a healing modality that I use quite often.
Right.
So,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah,
And
thank
Hannah?
you.
Yeah, personal experience. Well, in 2015-16, I was given 6 months to live. And I knew that my emotion was causing the physical ailment, because I was going through a lot of emotional stuff, and it manifested itself into physical. That's why I'm so, happy about this topic. Once it manifested enough, once I hit the hospital, I said, okay, my son called me and says, "Mom, please don't die. I'm getting married in 2 years." And I was like, oh my God, I gotta live. So I said, Lord, either way, if I go to you, it's fine. If I stay here, I want to make a difference in the world. And I knew that thoughts create reality. From all of the books and all of the training, I'm a mental health clinician, so I know that my thoughts was creating this reality that I did not want to experience at that time. So I vigorously went into a 30-day diet of no negative thoughts. Doctors in my hospital room cannot speak negative. My family cannot speak negative. Did not watch the news. So I had to go on a 30-day diet of absolutely no negative thoughts. And to me, that's what worked. And I walked the beach for a year, nonstop. Snow, sleet. I live in Connecticut, so it gets pretty cold. So snow, sleet, rain, no matter what was the temperature, I made sure I drove to the beach and walked the beach. And at time when the temperature was allowed, I would ground myself and walk barefoot. And that's when I discovered, that's when I got really into the energy healing, because I had to heal myself first. Once I healed myself, then I could heal others. And for a year, and it was a year by the sea, literally. They were icing. There were times it was icing on the ground, and I'm walking the beach, and people would drive around, look at me like, what is she doing? They did not realize I was trying to save my life. So, and that, to me, that energy of the beach and the not deliberately choosing positive thoughts at every moment that I could were the tools that I used to heal myself. That's where that energy, that's why I love energy healing and the whole emotions topic. Thank you.
Thank
Beautiful.
you, and I can
Thank you so
resonate
much.
with you.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I've got a really great a great opportunity, learning opportunity that I went through in profound healing. My mother, we didn't have a very good relationship growing up, very, very toxic. And as the years went by, we actually became very estranged, unfortunately. And it was very sad. I moved to the UK, and she was still in South Africa. So we lost ties. And there was always, I could feel a part of me that just was left behind. I could feel emotionally there was just something that did not feel right. And I felt so disconnected, and I felt really, really lost and sad. And then as the years went by, I discovered I was pregnant and with my first child. And I knew that during all the healing that I've done with the emotional intelligence, I came to the awareness and understood. I read a great book by Nicole LePerriere, the holistic psychologist, and it was about how to do the work. And that book really changed my mind, and it really gave me a perspective on understanding that by having empathy and compassion for people that are going through a situation that you might not understand, especially when they could have only put their best self forward that they knew at that point in time to do. And a light bulb went off in my mind, and I was like, wow, my mom was doing her best with what she thought she knew. That is all the capacity she had, because I was coming from a generation, a lineage per se, of very abused women. And her mother could only teach her what she knew because she was also abused. And so the chain went. And that's when I realized that it was up to me. I was the one that had to break this chain. I was the one that actually had to stand forward and say, no more. So, understanding the empathy, I contacted her and I said to her, hey, mom, you know what? Let's just bygones be bygones, but this is all I ask of you. These are my desires. That going forward, this is what I require. So, being very open and having very beautiful soft boundaries, but understanding your worth and sovereignty, and knowing if we're going to move forward, this is how I'd like both of us to move forward so we can both allow ourselves to heal. So to me, that was such a huge turning point, and I understood that she could only do the best that with what she had. It doesn't give her a free card to say it was okay with what happened, but it allowed me and it gave me peace. So what happens when you find inner peace? You evolve and you allow to surrender to the divine, and so much more comes into your soul that you can have circumstances going crazy around you. As long as you have that personal power within you, you are unshakable. And this is what I found. I'm actually getting goosebumps just saying that. It was so, so enlightening. And to this day, I'm happy to say that we have got an incredible bond. She's an incredible grandmother, and she arrives in the US in 2 weeks' time. So I'm very excited. And, it just goes to show that having that little bit of empathy and understanding, putting yourself in that person's shoes and not judging them, can transform the whole lineage for the 7 generations before us to 7 generations in front of us. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I agree.
Thank you.
Never judge. Don't know what the other side looks like, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
JJ?
I'm sure we all have hundreds of experiences. This is the case, so it's hard to choose one. But I like to choose stories that are relatable, especially to those who may not be mental health practitioners or who are in this field of healing. Because we all heal. We all have the power within us all the time. I think it was back in my college days. Again, I was working in the restaurant industry part time, and there was a lot going on. I had just finished college. I was putting together my resume, and my girlfriend at the time, she was also very stressed out. We both just graduated from college, weren't getting, didn't have a job yet, so we were still searching, and we were stressing each other out. Like it was like we would say anything. There was really no resolution, and obviously we both had things that we needed to get done in our own personal lives, and it was getting in the way. So I decided I made these suggestions to go on a break, right? Go on a break for about 30 days. About 45 days later, I had my list of things. She had her list of things that we would do during that break, and I got all of them done. I was extremely proud of myself, and I came back, and she was like, she had already processed a breakup. Like she had already kind of broken up, like had gone through the breakup, and I wasn't aware. So I came back and I was like, oh my God, I was so surprised. I'm on this high. I feel so great. I got all these things done. I know she got all those things done, but she didn't want to continue the relationship. And again, it was hard. It was definitely hard in the moment. And typically, what I would have done in that moment in the past was to kind of wallow in it a little bit, but then kind of just throw it under the rug, right? Just kind of just try to forget about it, throw that emotion under the rug, which a lot of people do. And instead, what I did is like, I want to feel this. I want to fully feel all this that I'm not allowing myself to feel. So I would listen to the most depressive songs, right? I would listen to music. I would watch happy movies and romantic comedies. I allowed myself to fully feel and embody all these emotions from the past that maybe coming from other, impulses that I had towards other women or other past relationships with other people. And it was, again, it was so healing. I was able to embrace a range of emotion that, in the past I again just throw under the rug. And what happened is that I just got this newfound confidence within myself. I just got back and determined. I lost like 50 pounds. I went and started competing in dance again, and made a national dance team. So like I used the emotion to channel kind of the next thing in my life, and that year was probably one of the most memorable years in my life because of all that I accomplished after allowing myself to process the emotion and actually lean into them instead of always.
And it's funny because most people do put those emotions on the side and do push them under the rug, and not knowing that at some point in their life, that will be based on some future decisions that they make. So, kudos to you, JJ. Yes.
Shall I go next?
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, obviously there's many examples, but I work with clients on their relationship with money and help them to manifest more money into their business and their life. And one of the examples that came up for me was when COVID hit. And I remember my first kind of visceral reaction was obviously anxiety, and then real fear around what was going to happen to business and the future of business and money. And I had this wave of anxiety come up, and then my brain was thinking, well, I just need to lower all my prices and like give everything away. And I kind of went into this sort of panic response. But as I coach my clients, I always say, never take action from a reaction. Go in, manage your emotions, process what's coming up, and then really tune in, follow your heart, follow your soul, follow your inner guidance system. And I remember once I did that, and because, when we're in those reactions, it feels real. The stories that we're telling ourselves, the thoughts that we have, it feels real. Our perception of reality looks like the truth in those moments. And so I'm always trying to, practice what I preach and come back in. And then my inner guidance, which is my heart, my soul, I call it the wealthy wisdom within, said, Laura, you are here to lead through this time. And it is possible for you, to make more money than you've ever made in your business. Are you going to catch that wave? My guidance calls it like the wealth wave. Or are you going to kind of go down and let your anxiety and fear kind of shrink you and hold you back? And the truth is, in those moments, I want to shrink. I want to kind of hide. I want to lower and dim. That's what I do. I kind of, my impulse is to want to bail, like shut down, exit stage left. And leaning in is actually very stressful for me based on my trauma and how my kind of nervous system reacts. So I was like, oh my God. And then I realized in there, like the emotion was actually around guilt and shame. Like I thought, who am I to be successful? Who am I to be wealthy? Who am I to do well when everyone else is struggling, right? And also that collective consciousness of like, oh my God, panic and run. Like, everyone's panicking. We all need to panic. And then what my inner guides was saying is, hey, you get to lead in like what's possible, right? But it felt sort of wrong and bad and shameful somehow. But I followed that, and it was like, just keep going, right? And I ended up having my most successful year in business. And so that's an example of, kind of managing our emotions in business and finance, because again, it feels, especially when there's like, I've noticed I'm so sensitive. So I'll start like absorbing like the collective, and then it will start impacting how I think, how I perceive. And I've just learned to be like, cool, that's what's going on. Like understanding compassion, also lots of understanding compassion that many people are and will suffer. But I get to sort of choose as much as I can how I'm going to lead myself through that, at least emotionally. Like what I can control is my emotional reactions. And then what the action we take or don't take comes from that. So that's my example I'd like to share.
I love it. And from what I see from there is where you made a decision whether you'll be in the state of faith or in a state of fear. So you went to the polar opposite of everything that was going on, and you made a decision to work from that end, which allowed you to, open yourself up to receive. Because when we are in a state of fear, we're actually closing opportunities because we're so much in fear, from what I've experienced. So being in that open mode of knowing that you're here to do you're here to do something greater and not have that fear is a beautiful thing. Obviously, from your story. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Next question. How has your emotional intelligence enhanced your ability to communicate with others in a way that is both clear and compassionate, facilitating deeper understanding and connection?
Well, this is for me the reflection conversation, and whoever it is, there's this definition I hold of the status, parent, family member, daughter, friend, client, and it's that awareness of the feeling I get in the moment of the conversation. So this, for me, has been this translating the meditation kind of solitude moments of that inner awareness, that self-training, but then putting it into real life practice and getting more comfortable with putting that space where the response can happen versus the reaction can happen. That again, that depending on the role I'm playing at that moment in that part of the day, that's the work. So the art of deciphering that feeling and sensation and description, as I mentioned before, that's my daily practice every moment. Yeah.
If I may add to that question for everyone, in each of your business practices, how do you find your connection with your clients where you're able to understand them at a different level because of your knowledge of applying emotional intelligence, so that when they come to see you, you almost have a picture of what's going on within them before they're actually telling you. So how do you use that information to help you make decisions to help them?
Is that for me to respond to right now?
Yeah, and then everybody can
Well,
add.
so for me clinically, when I apply, someone comes in with a concern, and there's a pattern of unfolding that goes on structurally, toxins versus nutrition. But where the mind is most interesting for me, and this process of NDT uses a reflex. So there's the standard questions I'm asking in response to what they're proposing. So there's two ways of entry. There's a physical entry, so we call that body entry. So it's a pain somewhere in the body. There's a physical pain, and there's a pattern to check if there's a mind component, and if so, then we start the 15-step process. And the first question is, I'm okay. And so the client then states that phrase, and if the reflex shows up when stating that phrase, there's a lack of neutrality around that specific topic. And then there's the questions that follow that in a very, the protocol has developed a certification process, so the practitioners are very well familiar with the steps, though they're always the same. And it's the art of listening to, so the emotional intelligence comes in, the art of listening to their story. And with the words that come out of their mouth, there's a feeling that comes with that's palpable. Now, that's just my own awareness as someone who's sensitive to those things, but we can all pick it up in their body language, in the tone of the voice, in the types of words they're using. It all kind of begins to express the pattern where they're seeing their reality.
I love that, because it is true. It's first our thoughts, and then our words match our feelings, pretty much.
Well, they all go together, and so to kind of get more specific on feelings, there's really these created, our body creates these hormones, and we can call them chemicals, but these hormones that are sent immediately throughout the body in response to this. So the feeling must come with it if there is a related stress response to the topic. And then we can apply whatever, study of how to be a better human, and put it on top of it. And where do we hit walls, and where do we have success? There's a reflex, and that's where I may not have the psychology or life coaching type of experience, though. Where I'm getting at is the body's, the client's response at that physiological level, in combination with having their conversation with their psychologist, their life coach, their best friend, their mentor, whoever that is, and they can grow with that. So we can, this protocol really just reveals it, and I get to be in the dance of them revealing their story and finding out what story is relevant to a deeper part of their neurologic wiring related to their psyche and their behavior and even their concepts of what life is.
Beautiful. Very
Yeah.
nicely explained. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
for letting me
Kim.
share that.
Yeah.
Amanda?
I find that active listening works for me both in personal and professionally. And I've had to learn active listening at a very young age. I moved here when I was 12 years old. I did not speak English until I was 14, so I had to learn English really quickly. And I had to really listen to learn. Going from French to English is a little sticky. So I had to really listen, and I watch body language so throughout my life. So that really helped me to in interpersonal relationships. And then in my practice, I find that listening is very important because the presenting problem is almost never the real problem. Clients may show up with depression, anxiety. They'll say they have OCD, PTSD, and so on. And then you'll go underneath. When you really listen, you find out they're worried about their finances, for example, or they're worrying about their spouses, or there'll be something else. So by active listening, we could really find out what the real issue is, because to treat the wrong issue or the presenting problem will not help the client ultimately. That's just putting a Band-Aid on the surface. So I find that active listening is both professionally and personally has been a way for me to really integrate my emotions. When I feel the emotions, like Gigi is saying, that response, instead of reacting, for us to respond. And if we're not listening, it's easy to react because someone says something, you're like, oh, you jump at it. But by actively listening, you have a chance to really listen. Now you can really respond effectively. So listening is what that's my go-to.
Thank you. And that's really what
That's
you're
my
saying
go-to.
is, I'm sorry, what you're saying
That's
is
my
really
go-to listening.
and that creates a more connection with the person when you're listening, correct? Because they know that you're hearing what they're saying and you're honoring them.
Absolutely. They feel like they know that you care because you take the time to listen to them. There are individuals who have never had someone to sit with them for 45 minutes to an hour and really listen and care non-judgmentally about their situation. Simply there to want to help. So the active listening really show them that we do care about what they have to say. And we're taking the time to respond and not just react to whatever's going on in the situation.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Anna, you just took the words out my mouth. So, well, I'll echo that, and I 100% agree. With what I do, I'm literally holding space for women, especially women going through awakenings, and it can throw them out of the loop, per se, because it can be very overwhelming in terms of what's going on in their body and their minds. And especially, when they don't have anybody to listen, when they don't have anybody with compassion and empathy to actually understand the changes that they're going through, whether it be metaphysical in terms of hearing voices, seeing auras, being able to talk to God, or, simple things such as, I realize I've discovered my voice, and I'm not just a mother. I'm not just a wife. I am actually a human being that has desires. So being able to listen, and I call it the art of listening, is truly, truly important when I have people, especially women, sitting down in front of me looking for help. Because when you listen, you don't just listen to somebody speaking. You listen with your third ear. We call it our third ear, which is your ESP senses, your psychic senses. And, with the job that I do, I am, most of us tend to have high ESP abilities, which enables us to be able to feel the person's emotions. We can hear soul speaking. We can see exactly energetically what is in their aura. Do they have something that is blocking a specific factor within the brain that's allowing them to cause this psychosis? There's so many aspects of healing that can come into play. So it's so impeccable and important to sit and listen, but you listen with the ability to feel, see, and hear. So when they sitting there, they feel fully seen. They feel heard, because you're creating the sacred environment that is non-judgmental. It is so beautiful and safe. And safety is so important for them to feel that they're safe to be able to express who they are. And, emotional intelligence comes into this because I've been there. 5, 6 years ago, I had no one to go through to actually say, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I'm going through a spiritual awakening. I need help. So, I'm basically bridging that gap for these women so they don't have to suffer. They don't have to wander around aimlessly spending so much money trying to figure out what is going on with them. I'm there to help them bridge that gap. So it's so important for listening and learning how to communicate effectively, because whatever they're communicating, I need to echo back and mirror. Okay, so this is what you're saying. And when they say yes, they feel seen, they feel heard. So that in turn gives them a lot of healing and a lot of, sovereignty and authenticity, saying that I am okay, I'm safe, and there's nothing wrong with what I'm going through. So, it's just essentially they feel good, they feel safe. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I go next, or are you going to go, Ahmed?
JJ and then Laura? It doesn't matter.
I would say, again, Anna put it best. Active listening is probably the best when doing this. And even Dr. Kevin, right? There's a way to do active listening with people's physiological reaction, right? There's a way to listen and look for things and connections between things. A lot of my just in my daily life, I'm coaching business owners that are looking to scale their companies, and there's always desires, right? So before we get to like kind of the problems or what the challenges that they have, the first thing I do is ask them what they're like. What is it that they want, right? What is it that you do want? And typically it's just a surface level desire, right? And asking, I would say at least 7 times why, right? Sometimes it might show up as, well, what's important about that? Or what will having that do for you, right? And okay, let's step into that. You want this desire, step into it. What else comes up, or what else is possible now that you're there? And you keep asking these questions to get down to an emotion, because at the core of all of our desires, there's an emotion. There's a state of being that we want. So I guess that's the way that I use the emotional intelligence, is just knowing that there is an emotion that they're after. And until we really reach that emotion, we're really just talking surface level, right? And when we do get there and understand what it is that they really want, now they're truly understanding themselves and connecting to what their actual needs are. So then when we do go about asking what the challenge is less about the surface level thing, and it's more about like what they actually want, like what's holding you back from experiencing that state of being. And then we can have now a more serious and just more intimate conversation about what's actually going to move the needle for them, whether it be on how they show up themselves, or how they show up in their company. Getting to the core, what is the reason? What's the emotion behind why you want to change?
Beautiful. I'd like to talk about something like a little bit more maybe invisible when it comes to emotional intelligence and marketing and sales and business. And one thing I learned the hard way was that how much we're communicating unconsciously, right? How much we're able to feel and sense people without even words sometimes. And one of the communication challenges I had was around, marketing and sales, because in my system, again, I had so much anxiety. I was constantly firing. My nervous system was constantly firing, trying to protect myself from attack and abandon based on my past. And yet my inner guidance, that kind of wise part, was telling me to be more visible and get online and put myself out there. And even though I knew that was the right thing and what I wanted to do to grow my business, to make more money, to serve more people, my system was constantly firing against it. So the anxiety was running. And this really affected my ability to communicate clearly. And even so I would kind of go nonverbal, and I'd struggle to use my words, and I'd struggle to also explain what I did. I'm very, very energetic. So I'm super psychic. I can see almost like everything everywhere all at once, but I would really struggle to communicate. So that going on inside of me was sort of affecting that ability to communicate with potential clients, and also communicating what I do and helping to build that connection between like potential clients. And this is what I've really noticed with my clients as well. It's like when there's a block around marketing, or block with sales, or block with money, what I find is when we go in, we can't see it because it looks like it's all happening externally. Why is this not working? Why is that not working? Why aren't I calling in my ideal clients? Why is this message not landing? What I find is usually about going and understand what's running inside of our energetic system, our emotions and our nervous system. And you can be saying all the right things, right? Doing all the right things, but like human beings, we can sense it. So what I find is when we go and do that work of really kind of, again, regulating our nervous system, working on the emotions, what emotions are running us unconsciously, that are almost like an inner conflict or an inner fight with what you want to do, your purpose, you're here to serve. And work on that. It's like this sort of magic formula that then impacts your marketing, impacts your sales, and then obviously impacts how much money you make. And not only that, but like the quality of clients you have, or the quality of connections you have within your team. And I found this little piece so freaking powerful in marketing, sales, running your team, in whatever part of your business you're struggling with. Understanding what's going on deep inside in that part of your business, working on that. And then it's like, it just feels like magic. Suddenly you're, all like the right clients are coming in, or all these shifts and changes are happening. So that was something that I learned over lots of failure over many years. And it's a pretty cool piece.
I love that, Lara, because, if we all understand that the subconscious mind runs 95% of our decisions every day. So when we dig into there and examine, the feelings and emotions that come from there, and we're able to transform those beliefs, those emotions, or change the perception of past situations we've been through, then we can definitely see more light when we make decisions, future decisions on things, because a lot of it comes from our past experiences and perceptions of what's stored in the subconscious mind. Right. So that's so beautifully said, the way you made that connection between the business decisions and our results, basically, that we achieve. Love that. Thank you. Ahmed, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry about that. So we just checking the comment section, and there's a brother by the name of William Jr. Zambezi. So he left a couple of short questions. And his question is emotional awareness enough to have good communication skills? And then he asks, how do I engage with the people around me in order to have effective communication skills?
Well, I think it's half the equation. I think there's development of communication skills, knowing how to ask questions. What kind of questions can be asked? Just engaging in that expression strategy training, I guess we can call it. And I guess in terms of emotional intelligence, notice that where you want to retreat, and notice where you feel that you get those moments of anxiety or apprehension when you are getting to different environments. I think that is the dance to be had.
Yeah, once again, active listening is a good way if you're able to listen to whatever the person is asking you or is relaying to you is one way. And also to trust your emotions. Your emotions are real. It doesn't matter whether it feels good or bad, it's real. To acknowledge it, to feel it, and if you feel safe enough to share it with the person, saying, I don't feel comfortable right now. Not you did this to me, but I don't feel whatever, or I feel whatever. So it's about this active listening to what the individual's trying to say to you.
And also, I just love to add, there is no right and wrong way in communicating when you're just really learning how to communicate. It's just all about trusting in terms of what you're feeling. But when you become very self-aware, you sort of know how to manage. You know how to manage and understand what you're feeling. So, it's also beautiful to understand that where you are trying to communicate, are they the right kind of people you need to be communicating with? We got to understand that when we find our tribe, it's so much easier to communicate. So just, take a step back and see if you're in the right room for communication. If you are, it's always easier, and don't hold back, but just be aware and make sure you are comfortable, confident, and emotional intelligence, making sure you don't have any triggers and you talking with impeccability and integrity, and truly you really can't go wrong in that aspect.
Thank you.
So I would say that there's the verbal communication and nonverbal communication. And so much communication happens non-verbally. So that self-awareness and emotional regulation and managing your own emotions is a really big piece around creating openness around communication, creating safety for other people to feel really relaxed, to open up to you. And so that's a really important piece, being that, aware of yourself within that. All of that is a really, really important part of communicating. And then there's obviously our verbal communication, which is, a different skill. But I would say that, people love talking about themselves, and that active listening, asking questions, asking people about themselves is a really nice way to start. If you have social anxiety and you don't kind of know how to communicate, asking people questions really gets the party started as well. But yeah, work on that inner game. And then, and then obviously it's about gauging. I love to ask questions, and I love to ask very personal questions. So I tell me everything all at once, but it's about kind of gauging, with little seed planting questions, how open they are and how much they want to share. And then you can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I started commenting, and I couldn't help myself. I started commenting in the YouTube and answering William directly. It's again, when it comes to communication as a skill is a totally different conversation from emotional awareness, right? So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Definitely being, having more emotional awareness and intelligence can help you become a better communicator. But you can have a lot of emotional intelligence about yourself and be really bad at communicating that emotion to other people. And you can still be really bad at understanding other people's emotions and convoluting them for something that they're not. So when it comes to communication, there's so many aspects to it, right? It's the tone that we use when we talk. It's how our bodies are oriented, right? If you're in front of a person and they're of the opposite sex, it might make sense for you to stand direct and fully head on with that person. When they're of the same sex, it might be best to stand next to them, right? The language patterns that we use, our breathing, how we pause, all of these things are important when we communicate. And our emotions can definitely get in the way of all of those techniques, right? So it's definitely good to be emotionally aware, because when you're in a conversation where you want to be understood and heard, but you're talking at a person versus talking to them or with them, it's going to have an effect on their ability to receive what you're saying and do so objectively without having to react. So you definitely just want to just tune into recording yourself and when you're communicating, on camera, record yourself when you're communicating with people, and just look at how you do it. Like actually go back, listen to yourself, watch yourself communicate, watch how you're standing, your body language. I think for me, that's been what's allowed for me and a lot of the people I help is understanding how they communicate is just to watch yourself and listen to yourself. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that you have to practice, just like emotional awareness and intelligence. These are two things that must be practiced. You need to apply what you're learning and you're hearing from other people. That's the best teacher is experience.
Beautiful. I love that. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back and have a few more questions. We'll be right back, everyone.
Now, the vast majority, approximately 95% of the people of all countries, go around and around without aim or purpose. They drift with the circumstances of life, good or bad.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind.
Whereas the successful individuals create their own circumstances and ride them to victory.
When you're on purpose, you're living on purpose. You will never quit if you have a real purpose.
A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. But what I have done has been recorded, it's been tested, it's being taken to a free world, and it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born.
And it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born. We're some of those people. That we're spreading this to the world. As your awareness grows, the doubt is gone, so that you can manifest whatever it is your heart desires. Isn't that beautiful?
Thank you, everyone, for coming back. So we're going to continue with the next question, Ahmed.
Yes. Next question is, describe a moment where emotional intelligence have helped you in the role of forgiveness that have enabled emotional healing in both yourself and others.
Well, forgiveness is one of the key elements to having that personal transformation. There's instances in every part of my life where when it got to the time to have that moment, it transforms yourself and transforms the other person. There's forgiveness still to be had in some of my relationships. So, though when I just completed a 40-day process of tapping into the emotional self, and what I noticed, even though it wasn't communicated yet to another person, as I even contemplated communicating, I felt the softening within. I felt the positive heart, that positive feeling of opening in different areas of my body. It's very relevant. So I know it's incorporated in numerous processes, and from Alcoholics Anonymous to name the group, forgiveness is part of the process.
Absolutely. And it's not forgiveness for them, it's forgiveness for us, right?
Right.
It's
Good.
the healing that we get from that. So I love that. Thank you. Hannah, we can't hear you.
There we go. When we forgive, we really forgive for ourselves, not necessarily for the other person. I find that I was being very unforgiving. Like I said, I moved here when I was 12 years old, and my parents left me in the Caribbean to come here to make a better life. As a child, you don't know why your parents are leaving you. You just know that they left. So in my psyche, I was like, why did they leave me? Why did they leave me? Intellectually, I knew, well, they had to go and leave and make a living. Kind of like when you leave your children to go to work and they're upset with you because they'll cry because you left to go to work, but they don't realize you need to go to work. So when I hit college, that's when I realized I had to forgive my parents, because not only intellectually I knew that they had to leave me to come and make a better life in the United States, but then not forgiving was not helping me either. And I could not really move forward with my life until I could feel, not just intellectually forgive, but to really truly feel. And beyond just saying, oh, I forgive you, okay, because I know what you did, to be thankful that they did what they did. Because of what they did, I became who I am. So it's beyond just saying, I forgive you because of what you did, or I forgive you because I feel better. Is knowing that we are here in this dance together. We are here in this dance, on this planet, in this dance together. So that what they did was to help me in their own way to be who I am today. So to me, forgiveness is beyond just saying, I forgive you, okay? No, it's about thank you for what you did, because it made me a better person. Now I can empathize with people from all walks of life because of what I've gone through. So yes, absolutely. Forgiveness is the key.
Thank you for sharing.
Anna, seriously, you have a direct line to my conscious, girlfriend. She's stealing my words. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I'd love to echo that. And I'd just love to also add, forgiveness on my healing journey that I've experienced is a beautiful active, it's an active part of self-love for yourself, because it creates such an incredible peace in your life that you are able to not have an expectation of somebody that limits you to, allow your very being want that person to be who you want them to be. And learning to forgive people for what they've done, it doesn't really, take them off the role of like, I forgive you for doing that, but we're just going to forget. That is probably, one of the worst things to do, because it gives you self-peace knowing that you've forgiven someone. And, this is something that I went through. It was last year. I went through a really deep spiritual awakening. And I found that through emotional intelligence and learning and going through the healing process of letting go, of surrendering and allowing yourself to really peel the layers of conditioning, of patterning from your very core, that leaves you open because it is pure and you're able to vibrate at a much higher vibration. So pure love is probably one of the highest, pure love and enlightenment is one of the highest vibrations on the consciousness, the map of consciousness. And, when you're vibrating in that vibration, fear, shame, and guilt cannot resonate there. It really cannot. So during this awakening, I was brought to the very core of my soul, and I was allowed to let go and be angry. I'm not a very angry person. I'm all love, light, and unicorns, but I understand there's a shadow aspect of every part of ourselves that we need to come face to face with. We need to befriend, and we eventually need to feel it, heal it, and release it and rise. And this is what I've done. I released that anger. I released the shame. I released the guilt for everything that happened to me in my past. And what came from that was incredible forgiveness. Forgiveness for everybody that did me wrong, because I did not want to hold on to that anymore. I couldn't, because it was actually stopping me from becoming a better person, and it stopped me from being able to move forward and allow myself to be my best version per se. So yeah, I echo, forgiveness is a beautiful act of self-love, so you can move on, so you can continue to become the most magnificent soul-aligned being that you can be. So thank you.
So I think so much
Beautiful.
about forgiveness has been said, which is wonderful. What I would like to just add is I think it's really important to understand that forgiveness is a process, right? It's like the grieving process. You cannot rush it and you can't fake it. So, because I've been deep in the spiritual world for a long time, it's gratitude and forgiveness and love, but actually it's actually an embodied thing. It needs to be going all the way through your body. So you can say, I forgive you, and still have deep resentment or really deep kind of unprocessed emotion around it. So there's been things that have happened in my life that I knew I wanted to get to that place of forgiveness, because I knew that would be my own personal liberation, but I wasn't ready to forgive yet. hadn't gone through all the grieving stages to get to that point. So I think that's one thing, is give yourself time. But we can also unconsciously hold on, and in not forgiving, it actually can make you very unwell, right? It can make you mentally unwell, emotionally unwell, physically unwell. So you want to forgive for yourself, as been said already. But as well as forgiving other people for what they've done, another really powerful place that I've worked on is around self-forgiveness. If you have done something that you regret, or if you have, maybe it's in around addiction. So in my addictions, there was a really, really important process of self-forgiveness, because what I used to do was beat the crap out of myself and give myself such a hard time, thinking like this sort of inner perfectionist and really harsh critic, that was going to be the thing that would create change. And what I found was that would just grip me even more to my addictions and my self-sabotaging patterns. And I learned that through deep self-forgiveness, and which is this type of self-acceptance and a self-love, that's actually what unhooked me from the patterns that I wanted to shift. So there's forgiving others, which unhooks you from that kind of deep wound and pain that kind of keeps you, it actually stops you from moving forward, essentially. And then there's a self-forgiveness that can unhook you from patterns, behaviors, habits, ways of doing things that actually kind of keep you locked into that. So it's the ultimately like personal liberation through, self-forgiveness and self-love.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I love that, Laura. And that's really what is essential, is to give yourself unconditional love when you go through that forgiveness process, right? No matter what happens, we're just humans. And be compassionate for ourselves. Thank you. JJ, you're up.
Yeah, so again, part of the forgiveness, just like Laura mentioned, is that self-forgiveness, because let's keep it real. If you're not forgiving yourself for what's going on, then you're the one that's holding on to the poison and expecting for somebody else to change, right? So I would say a moment where emotional intelligence has helped me in the role when it comes to forgiveness. Well, again, there was an experience that I had with a past relationship, and I was betrayed, right? I felt a sense of betrayal, and there was a lot more emotions that came with it. It also meant that this person betrayed me. I could no longer associate myself with them. I could no longer associate myself with a lot of other people who I had built amazing relationships with because of this betrayal. I just couldn't do it. And so for a while I was holding on to these emotions where I was angry, I was resentful, right? And in just processing it, it's okay, I have to forgive her and I have to forgive myself, right? And then when I focus on not necessarily forgiving her, when I forgive myself first, I realize that I co-created this experience, right? It's that radical self-love. It's like I co-created this experience. So I have to, one, forgive myself for choosing this, even if I knew that it could potentially lead to something that I didn't want to experience. And when I fully forgave myself, and with that forgave the anger I had towards myself, forgave the resentfulness that I had towards myself, and even the hostility that I had towards myself, it allowed me to forgive her. And then once you do that, you have so much more compassion for the other person, right? When you actually forgive, you're giving completely. That's what the word means, forgiving, right? Giving completely. And to give completely, you have to let it go completely, right? And it's until that you do that for both sides, right? You're forgiving yourself for having had the experience, for maybe reacting the way you did when you were first experiencing it, and then also forgiving the person, because at the end of the day, they're a human. They're going through their own things. They may have their reasons as to why they did what they did, and that's okay. And accepting and really accepting the fact that they did it, even if you don't believe or align to what they did, you have to forgive them for it, right? And completely, right? That's the word. Doing it completely, and that's where all the real true healing is for both people, right?
I love that. Dr. Wayne Dyer, I'm sure a lot of you heard of Dr. Wayne Dyer. You know, he says it's not the snake bite that kills you, it's the venom that we keep inside. So it's so important to forgive, for sure.
Absolutely. And I remember Bob Proctor, you know, he said to forgive, you have to let go of completely, abandon. And he even phrased, he said, Buddha once stated, he said, you know, whether you have a resentment against someone or you have some guilt, it's like holding a hot fiery coal in the palm of your hand. You want to throw it at someone else, but you can't. So it's like it's burning you on the inside out. So it's very, very important to let go. Many people say, well, I forgive, but I don't forget. Those that do this, they have not forgiven. And it's very important to let go of completely and to abandon.
And you have
All right.
to forgive without needing an apology. Whether the other
Absolutely.
person apologizes or not, it's irrelevant. It's just about
And he always had a practice as well. He said, every day, bless 3 people that have wronged you. Right. Up for the next question. Can you provide an example of a decision in a profound situation in your life where emotional intelligence guided you toward a more healing or positive outcome? And what impact did it have on your well-being?
Well, sometimes the decisions that are made don't necessarily produce the positive outcome right away. And oftentimes the most difficult situations that what I'm referring to has allowed me, how do I say this, compelled me to seek out new knowledge, new mentors, new ways of seeing the world. And as I began to go into that material, I gained more. I felt a phoenix rising, if I say it that way. I gained more personal power. I gained more wisdom. I gained more um, benefit from the nature of the decision that without going into not going into any specifics about it. It just unfolded a whole area of life that has now empowered me to great ways, and learning to put that power into appropriate use to benefit myself, my daughter, my community, everyone. Even those that are unaware of it will get benefit from it as I continue to express it. So hopefully that kind of alludes to some kind of answer. There's a solution. There's a benefit to the problem that shows up, even though the decision that I've made was what I thought was right in the moment, led to difficulties, which led to greater insights.
Thank you, Dr. Kevin.
the decision that I made. That was very scary. I was working at Yale for 10 years, had the 401k, 403B, and all the perks that come with being with a big organization. And I decided to go into private practice. And it was very scary. Like Clara was saying, when there's an emotion that goes in it, anxiety, and oh my God, can I do this on my own? What if I fail? And all that stuff. And I had to really process that emotion and just take the leap anyway. If I fail, oh well, I could always go back, but the plan was not to go back. So that was a decision that I made that was a very emotional. And yes, it was very impactful. And I'm so happy I made that decision because I was able to help so many more people in the energy field in my own way because I followed my emotion, the emotional intelligence of that decision. So that's one decision that I'm always going to be forever happy that I followed the emotion and made the right decision.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I'd love to share like one typical example that comes up. And I guess it was, from the beginning when I decided it was time to focus on me. It was time to, really understand that it was my time to shine. And that happened probably it was 4 years ago. And I was, just moved to Florida, didn't have a lot of friends, so we didn't really have a support network. And my little guy was small, my older guy was in school, and hubby was consistently working. So I was alone, didn't have a support network, so it became very, very overwhelming. And I'll never forget one day he came home and he was just
not in a good mood because I've been traveling and I really needed help. And I said, honey, please, can you just help me? Can you just take care of the kids? And, right in that moment, he said to me, no, it's not my job. I've worked the whole day. It's your responsibility. And in that moment, literally my life flashed before me. And I had a decision. I had three things to decide. I could either throw him with the dish, or I could really, have a big old, little hysterical fit, or I could actually take pause and decide what my next move was. And also, like in that moment, I literally saw the flash of my mom, his mom, my grandmother, the generational lineage of, oh my God, is this really happening? Am I just a mother or am I just a wife? And in that moment, the emotional intelligence that I had been, so beautifully spending time on and being understanding of my awareness, triggers, I realized that at that point, it was time to do me. It was time to understand that from now on, it's me. And in that scenario, it was so beautiful because he knew we had a conversation, and he could tell in the tone of my voice, because I gained confidence from that. I didn't react. I actually listened and I responded. I took time away and I responded. And when we actually did that, he understood that it was time that he climbed the corporate ladder. Now it was my time to shine and, be who I aspire to be. And from there, it was just such an incredible decision for my own confidence, self-esteem, and self-love. And through there, our relationship completely turned around. We were a hell of a lot more, in tune with each other. And as I grew, he grew. So it became a beautiful communion, and we became very symbiotic. So it was really great that I actually took that decision to stand up for myself and speak my voice, because a lot of women don't do that. A lot of women would just cower away and immediately just shut down and fawn and freeze. And that's what I used to do. So it was a beautiful decision. Emotional intelligence gave me the confidence to be able to stand up and speak. And we haven't, looked back since then.
Beautiful share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh no, we lost Laura. Well, I hope she gets back and makes a good connection.
Okay.
Again, it's these loaded questions. I'm not sure if it's just me, if I'm just like, okay, this is a good question. 75 different experiences where we can talk about, right? So I remember there was a time I was 7 years old. I'm on the bed playing a video game, and I hear my mother calling me from the kitchen. And I go out to the kitchen. I see that she's actually like behind the door, and it's locked. The only thing that's holding her back is this little chain. And I just really wanted to open the door for my mom. And my dad rushes out of his room, and then he starts yelling and screaming. There's obviously something going on between them, but I was a little boy. I didn't know what was going on. My sister comes out of her room. She's trying to open the door. And, in that moment, I just created this story where I'm not big enough to open the door or whatever, all these things. And in that moment, I made a decision to do something about it. I'm a kid. I'm subconscious. I had watched The Parent Trap and It Takes Two and all these movies of the twins switching roles and acting and behaving a specific way. And I go through life, and I was doing that. I was acting as if I was acting a specific way to get people to come together. So this moment that happened for me as a child really started to externalize into all my relationships, where I was kind of being the middle person and trying to get people who are fighting or best friends and trying to get them back. Long story short, right? I become an architect. I start working in the field, and I start to notice that these emotions and stress starts to get in people's way. And I made a decision, and this is probably the profound situation that I was in. Like, I was in a really bad place. And in that time, I chose to study psychological kinesiology and get involved with Psych-K, get involved with EFT tapping, quantum healing, all the different modalities that I'm trained in now. And I allowed for an experience where it was almost like a guided meditation, and I was going and regressing back into the state of my being. And I was back there. I was 7 years old. I'm on the bed playing this video game. I go out to the kitchen. My mother's screaming, open the door, open the door. My dad storms out of his room. My sister comes out of her room. And I realized that I didn't have to be this person who had to overachieve to get other people's attention. I didn't have to be the healer of every situation that I was in. All I wanted to do was open the door. And now what I realize is that I find joy because the decisions that I've made help me open the door for other people. And then typically that door is to their own self, right? It's opening the door that they've locked. They've tucked in everything that they don't want to face, and they've put it back there. And it's gotten to the point where they're in front of me because if they don't do something about it, either the business is going to fail or the relationship is going to fail. And that's what it's about, right? So the profound decisions that I've made allow me to open doors for people and open doors for myself that I never thought was possible.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
Hi there. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is a bit wobbly. Yes, so the story I'd like to share is where basically I was in a point in my business where there was a block in my business, and I was noticing it was starting to decline, right? The numbers are starting to go down, the income was starting to go down. And I know when that happens, I always go within and ask, what is going on inside of me that is contributing or creating that external result? What's happening? Where is my blind spot? And I've been a healer channel spiritual coach for like over 2 decades, right? The big giver, wanting to hold space for everyone, give to everyone, help everyone, serve everyone. The energy is very much going out, out, out. And I ended up having to face something. It was almost like the opposite of healer Lara, which was about setting boundaries for myself. And I've spent so much time the last 25 plus years trying to understand people, trying to understand human psychology. Why do people do what they do? And trying to bring love and compassion and all of that to, every situation. I have, done triple backflip, worked so hard to try and heal every single situation. But it got to a place where this pattern that she developed these great skills, have done so much, created so much positive change in my life, was actually leaking a lot of energy when it came to growing my business and moving forward in my life. And one of these patterns was about actually not saying no and not setting clear boundaries, particularly to abusive members of my family who are kind of not doing their work. And it was one of the hardest, most stressful inner conflicts I've ever had, because my little wounded self wanted to keep everyone together and keep the peace and figure out how to create harmony. But I was leaking so much energy on being the love and the light and the kind. And I was actually unconsciously really hurting and harming myself. It was almost like I had to flip it. And it's been one of the most stressful, challenging moments of my life, because it was almost counter what I've been doing and who I am and my self-identity. And so it was deeply, deeply stressful. But again, I had to sort of choose myself, which was like that self-love, self-compassion, putting myself first to take care of myself, because it was literally starting to cost me in different parts of my business, but I couldn't see it because it was in a real blind spot. So it was super, super interesting to actually go into that deep place of deep, deep self-listening, deep care, really, really taking care of myself in order to turn things around kind of professionally, financially, but also what happened, it was leaking in other parts of my business and my life. And it's actually allowed everything to kind of grow and accelerate and welcome this whole new wave of, well, myself and business, but my business, my finances, my relationships. And it's actually kind of strengthened everything. But it took a lot. It was almost like there was the great, great squeeze before I could make that pivot. So that was kind of it was almost like I had to do the opposite of what I've been doing, right? The love and the forgive everyone, and come back and bring these really, really tight new boundaries of deep self-love and deep self-honoring. And then of course, we can kind of relax those boundaries as we strengthen ourselves again. So it was a surprising one for me to work through.
I love that. And it just reinforces the fact that everything starts with us, right? Mm-hmm. Once we change, then our outside world will change. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Growth usually happens under pressure as well. So I like the part when you said squeezing. It's like when either a lobster or a crab, when they wanted to expand, the shell usually is pretty much tight. But once they release that shell, they grow into a bigger creature of their own nature. So it's amazing how once you're under pressure, you learn certain things, but that also enables you to propel as well. Last question. What is one personal message of healing or encouragement that you would love to share with our audience today?
Well, the inner guidance within is the answer, and that voice is quiet.
Beautiful.
So get still and get connected to your inner self.
Love that. That's where the answers are, right?
I would say to stay connected as well, to find every day at least 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, to focus on something positive, so that will continue to grow in your life. At least 2 minutes, and because what you focus on expands. By giving yourself those 2 minutes, it will incrementally. Every day you'll have increased more and more into the positive aspect, the greater version of you.
Okay. If I may, I just want to say to whoever's listening today, I just want you to know that you are an incredible, magnificent being. You are beautiful, and you are a beautiful, enlightened being that is here for a purpose. You are made in a beautiful expression of the divine, and you are perfect the way you are. Follow your inner guidance, and you will be exactly in the right space, time, and area that you need to be. And you will grow and become a better person. Just step forward, be better, do better, and everything will work out for the highest good of all.
Thank you.
So if there's something that is deeply stressing you out, that is taking up and consuming a lot of mental energy, emotional energy, and you're focusing on some external person or event or situation, the healing message always is to come back and go within. Where is that mirroring, or what is happening inside of you? What can you take radical self-responsibility for? Focus on shifting your inner game. That's the only thing you can really control. And focusing all that mental energy, emotional energy externally is just a huge energy leak, and will just drain your resources, drain your power to actually manifest actually and heal. So come back in, focus on you, even if it feels uncomfortable and sad and lonely at first. That is the magic of healing. Go within, and your whole reality will start to shift through that.
Thank you, Lauren.
I think we're all aware that the inner guidance is the most important, and what I'll challenge or encourage you to do for that person that is listening, for you, you, the one that's listening now, is find people to work with, right? One of the hardest things sometimes to do is to go inside of yourself if you've never done it before or never knew how, right? There's 6 other people that are on this call that are here to serve others, right? So I always say, if you're looking to do some healing, if you're looking to, and you're going through some things, the things that the best people on the planet, the ones that are the most equipped, they find a systematic approach for dealing with it, right? They find support. They find a sense of accountability. And, we're all very good at doing that for ourselves, but sometimes we need a little bit of guidance. And it's okay to ask for help, right? That's the only message. It's okay to ask for help and to work with somebody who's dedicated their life to helping you and standing in power for you.
Yeah, and I'll add to that to say that more than likely, whatever anyone is going through, somebody's been there already, and you're not alone, and someone's out there that can understand what you're going through, and absolutely seek out, because we're here to help each other. That's one of our major purpose in life, is to truly help each other. And
Right.
are we So let's go real quick. We have a couple more minutes before we land this plane. How can someone get in touch with you, Dr. Kevin? And we'll just go around real quick.
Yeah, you can go to drkeving.com. You can find that same name on pretty much every major social media at this point. And there's content about analyzing your own mind. There's a book I wrote about interpreting sensations and what they relate to in the consciousness. There's technologies to support you in decoding and de-stressing yourself. And so there's a lot of resources on there. I want to encourage you. There's some free tools on there. That's drkeving.com.
Thank you.
You can go to counselingwithAnnaMartin.com. That's our main website. You can also go to annahaven.org, which is our nonprofit satellite. And also, we are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, we are on the social media platforms. So, and you could also Google Anna Haven Behavioral Health Services, which is the main company. We provide mental health services there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook, and that would be Abundant Moon 111. Very easy to remember, so I would be honored to serve you as best as I can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can check out my podcast and book, Money Manifestation Mastery. You just have to put Money Manifestation Mastery in on your favorite podcast platforms, or come to larawaldman.com. That's LARA Waldman.com. I've got lots of great resources to support you there. And I'm on all the social media platforms under Lara Waldman as well.
Thank you, Laura.
Awesome. For me, you can find me on Instagram as Josmar J. Manuel. Same thing for Threads. On Facebook, you'll find me as JJ Manuel. And if you're looking to overcome some limiting beliefs, work through some fears and some phobias and release them finally, then you can go to spiritualadvertising.com. There's a small application, short application there. And if everything looks good on the application, I'd love to bring you in, potentially work with you.
Thank you, JJ.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you to all our guests. I truly appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with my audience. And until next time, everyone, thank you, Ahmed, for joining me in today's show.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the next show. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.